Today, we become legends.
There's been a lot of discussion and fanfare in the community lately about the Conquest map in Smite 2 and how it's not in the best state it could be, being outclassed pretty heavily by Smite 1's take on Conquest. And I largely agree with this. While there are some things Smite 2's Conquest does a lot better than Smite 1, it's one of the areas of the game that could use the most improvements right now. So here's my list of changes I'd make to the Conquest map right now. I'm coming at this from three main areas of improvement. 1, objectives need some work. 2, there's too much safe farm available on the map. And 3, the map doesn't look very good. So kicking it off with objectives, the first thing I would do is a change you probably heard me talk about before, and that is the return of Beacon from Smite 1. This will require quite a bit of geometry work around mid to fit it in, as it is quite a large objective, but it would go basically where the gold pile and oracles are right now, with the oracles moved into the gold fury pit or somewhere else. For those unaware, the Beacon is a capture point objective. You stand on it and slowly capture it over time as long as you have more allies standing in the area than there are enemies. This would actually force some fights around mid instead of everyone just going for all their safe farm, especially because I would rework the reward that Beacon gives. In Smite 1, the Beacon would damage the frontmost enemy towers on capture, but since the Pyromancer now does that in Smite 2, it needs a new effect. I want to tie the Beacon into the infamy system, so one part of the reward it gives will be instantly advancing your infamy on all camps to the next level up. On top of that though, I would also bring back the Tiki masks, which would unlock at infamy level 4 on your buffs. When this Harpy camp on duo side reaches infamy level 4, it would also turn into the camp from Smite 1 that lets you unlock the various Tiki masks, and if you capture Beacon while this camp is already at level 4, it will instantly unlock or upgrade the next mask in rotation. The infamy system has a lot of potential. I think people dismiss it as boring because of the way it's currently implemented, not feeling very rewarding, but it's a very customizable system, and unlocking the Tiki masks at max infamy level is a good incentive to actually care about your infamy. There's more that could be done with the infamy system, such as making buffs look slightly different at each infamy level for a visual indicator of yours and the enemy's progress, dropping the buff twice at max infamy level maybe, or actually useful additional effects on the buff as you level up the camp. Right now it just makes the base effect better. It could be cool to have an exciting new effect to unlock at infamy 2 and 4 maybe. Like for example, speed buff at infamy 2 could gain a passive execute effect on jungle camps that instantly kills them below 20% health, similar to minions. And at level 4 it could gain a passive hand of the gods style effect on a cooldown that deals a burst of AoE true damage when you hit a camp on a cooldown. Blue buff could gain a level 2 effect where when you or a nearby ally drops below 10% max mana, it sends out a pulse to all nearby allies restoring 20% max mana. At level 4 it could gain an effect that activates when you strike from out of combat, consuming 10% of your current mana to slow the target by 20% for 3 seconds. I'm just spitballing ideas here, but the idea generally is to give buffs a more visible and rewarding effect for leveling up, rather than just more mana regen than you had before, because that's pretty boring. Combined with a visual difference in how the buffs look based on the infamy level, it could make the system a lot more obvious in what it's actually doing for you. With some changes to make infamy more exciting, the addition of Tiki masks at level 4 infamy, and tying the Beacon into this system, it could give the whole jungle a more cohesive feel and make players actually care about their infamy level and strategize around it, rather than it just being a thing that happens in the background that no one really cares about or pays any attention to. If this isn't enough to make Beacon worth it though, especially in the late game, you could add another reward on top of this for capturing Beacon, but tying it into the infamy system was the main idea I had. Next up is something that's actually been in data mining for a long time now, but we've heard nothing official on it, so if you don't want to be spoiled by data mining, skip to this time in the video. So yeah, for a good few months now, there's been elemental gold fury variants in data mining. For example, an earth fury, a fire fury, a nature fury, etc. There isn't much info on what each one of these would do, but presumably they would all have some kind of unique effect, sort of akin to what ancient fury does now, and will probably be on a randomized rotation like League of Legends Dragon. I think this would be a great addition to make objectives more interesting, and there would definitely be strategizing to be had around which fury is spawning next and if you want to contest it heavily or not. Obviously you would like to contest the gold fury anyway just for the golden XP rewards alone, but having these unique elemental furies with effects that might be especially valuable to your team comp or game plan could make for some strategic play at a high level. If the next fury is an earth fury and for whatever reason you don't care that much about the effect that it gives, you might just trade it for Pyromancer instead. But if it's a nature fury, you might really want that effect and decide to rotate your solo laner over as it spawns to burst it before the enemy can contest. These seem really interesting, and it's sad that we haven't heard anything official on this yet. They've been in data mining for a while, albeit with a very work in progress models, so it's possible this feature has been put on hold for a while or even scrapped, but I think this idea here would be great for enhancing objective play in the game. Another small change I would make for objectives is bringing back enhanced Fire Giant in place of the current system where FG just gets stronger every time it's taken. In Smite 1, it was sort of a big moment when enhanced Fire Giant came online, and there were absolutely times where the game was at 28 minutes and the winning team might stall to wait for EFG, or times when the losing team would not contest a Fire Giant at 25 minutes and try to hold out, but for the next spawn it's going to be an EFG, and so they do want to contest that, due to how powerful EFG can be in terms of ending the game. The FG could still scale its effect after it turns into EFG, but that specific moment in the match where EFG comes online was a big deal in Smite 1 matches, and that feeling just doesn't really exist in the Smite 2 system. Also for FG, I think it would be hilarious if he exploded into 10 or 20 of the stat rocks on death. A small thing, but it could add to the experience. This could maybe turn on when he becomes EFG, or just have the amount of rocks dropped doubled when he is an EFG, something like that. So yeah, bring back the beacon alongside a rework to the infamy system and addition of Tiki masks, add the elemental Gold Fury variants, and bring back enhanced Fire Giant. That's some stuff they could do to make objective play feel more rewarding on the current map. The next thing to address would be all the save farm, as there's definitely too much of it on the map at the moment, and either not enough contestable farm, or those contestable camps aren't worth enough. First up, I would make Totem grant 2 permanent CDR to the player who takes it, and 1 permanent CDR to the rest of their team. This might need to come with a nerf to how often Totem spawns or how easy it is to take, but right now Totem is just not worth the effort, and you'd often rather just go take your corner harpies. Making it more valuable will result in more fights over it as opposed to just backing off and going for safe farm. I also think the Cyclops chest camps on the sides of the lanes need to be looked at. A camp that gives a large amount of gold but no XP is interesting, but it often leads to just being not worth contesting early game because XP is so much more important in the first 5 minutes than gold is. I would probably just replace these with the mini buff camps from Smite 1 as a simple solution, CDR buff in solo, shield buff in duo. There's probably more you could cook with these, but that's just the simplest solution to the problem. The infamy system changes mentioned earlier would also impact this, as contesting the rotating buff camps in mid and duo will become much more important as the rewards for ranking up your own buffs are more valuable. I think those changes alone would already go a long way in promoting fights over safe farming, as it would make these camps much more important to contest as opposed to going to your corner harpies or your jungler's back camps. But if those changes weren't enough, you could also remove or rework the corner harpies. Another small thing I would do that's not really related is that I changed the way teleporters work back to how they did in Smite 1, with a single teleporter pad in a neutral location on both sides of the map. If you watch my videos a lot, you'll know I personally would just remove side teleporters altogether, as I think they devalue rotations and planning ahead, but the team seem to like them, so if they are here to stay, they should at least make them like they were in Smite 1, which was a better approach in my opinion. With a single teleporter pad located in a more obvious place with heavy sound effects that can be heard from lane, it would at least make it more obvious that someone is TPing. That's pretty much it in terms of gameplay changes though, so to recap, add Beacon alongside the infamy system overhaul and Tiki masks, add the elemental Gold Furies, bring back enhanced Fire Giant, replace the gold chest camps with silver and gold buff from Smite 1, and make the totem more valuable. You could also remove corner harpies and potentially buff some tank solo laners if that doesn't fix the solo lane issues, but I feel like a lot of the changes listed here will have positive impacts on those things anyway, so doing that extra stuff would be a maybe if things don't change enough from these additions. The final thing to talk about with Conquest is of course the art and feel of the map, which is a bit more subjective, but I think most people would agree that the map is fairly bad visually at the moment. A lighting overhaul would probably be the biggest thing here, as right now the lighting is very flat, and while a competitive game does need some semblance of even lighting to make sure there aren't areas that are poorly lit for combat visual clarity, I do feel like the lighting right now is just way too flat and looks unnatural. The team are aware of this though and have said on Titan Talk that changing the lighting is one of their first steps on making Conquest look better in the coming months. Another major thing would be adding some ambience and personality to the map. They can take lessons from the Joust map here, in my opinion. The Joust map has theming and ambience down to a T. The whole map is themed around a cohesive idea, Mordred's forces of evil versus Camelot's forces of good, and taking place on the castle battlements. It also has trinkets, decorations, and background elements down as well. The big towers near the Lost Knight with the vines creeping up them, the dragon on the chaos side of the map, and even small things like stacks of crates, torches, small areas of foliage. All these things have a big impact on making the map feel like a real place and not just a rock floating in the middle of nowhere. Conquest needs improvements in these areas of ambience, decoration, and theming, and if they could replicate a similar vibe to the Joust map, that would go a long way. Obviously not just directly Arthurian themed like the Joust map, but a similar quality with a different style. I also think the trees could use some work, which is another thing they've mentioned on Titan Talk as an area they're looking at for improvement. Smite 1's Conquest map had a jungle that actually felt a bit dangerous, like enclosed place when you walk through it. Smite 2's jungle is just way too open to the sky and probably a little too vibrant for my liking. Again, lighting could go a long way in this regard on its own, but a lighting overhaul combined with better trees and foliage would be big for the atmosphere of the map. And one final note on the art direction, the bases and Fire Giant pit need a serious overhaul, probably an entire rework. They are very much still in the style of the original alpha for Smite 2 and don't fit with the newer art direction they switched to a while back. Getting these areas back in theme with the rest of the map would be great, as right now they kind of just look a little bit copy-pasted. But that's pretty much everything I would do at the moment to quote fix Conquest in Smite 2, both from a gameplay perspective and from an art perspective. Of course, these are some pretty major changes and additions, and I don't expect the team to be able to do all of this anytime soon, but these are the things I would look for in terms of making the Conquest map better, as it is one of the worst areas of Smite 2 right now. The core gameplay is great, the variety in gods and playstyles is great, the item pool is pretty good, but the map is very lacking. Let me know your own thoughts and ideas down below, of course, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.